And so when I got there, I couldn't see any longer. So I stepped right into the door frame, never passed it. And as soon as I stepped and turned with my gun light, I could see two individuals down this hall, and they were overlapping. It was weird. And as my gun got to him, he's on the right, she's on the left. But as my gun got to him, I saw the silver tip of his gun. Boom, he shot. I got off 4 rounds, and the breacher's tucked in the other side of the door now because shots are fired. I looked at him and said, man, I've been hitting my artery.
Hey, 4 shot fired. Copy, additional shot fired. Shot fired. He's shooting at us. Suspect shooting at officer. Suspect down. He's at the base of the stairs. White t-shirt, white male.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Shots Fired podcast. We are here in Nashville, Tennessee at the TAC Ops Conference. It's a tactical conference. It's been a really good show and a good conference so far.
Yeah, for sure. Let's welcome our next guest to the show, retired Sergeant John Mattingly.
Here, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, dude. I know you took an hour and a half trip to drive out here, so we really appreciate it. Before we dive into the show and your background and your story, which a lot of people probably listening to this are very familiar with, we do want to give a quick shout out to TAC Ops. You guys, if you haven't been to the conference and you're in any type of patrol capacity, SWAT, anything, we really do encourage you guys to get signed up for these conferences. They're 3 a year: Nashville, Washington, D.C., and New York. It's a great time. The instructors that teach here are second to none. They're from all over the country, and it's a great networking experience, and it's a lot of fun. So, and a ton of good information to learn. So
if you want to sign up for it, go to swatconference.org.
With that said, John, give everybody a little bit of a bio about yourself and kind of how you ended up here today.
Yeah, so I was a cop for 21 years. Spent 6 years of those on late watch and patrol, 5 of them as an officer, 1 as a sergeant. Probably, 5 years in a division level narcotics unit, 3 years in a violent crime unit, and then another 3 years up in major case narcotics.
Okay. So total of how long did you say?
21 years.
21 years. Yeah. Nice. Okay.
My last year was kind of vacation-y.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're suspended.
Yeah, suspended. Yeah.
Is that what,
yeah.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. It's free pay.
Cool. And we're going to dive into that. I got a couple questions, dude, before we get into it. This is my first time in Tennessee. So the heat here, off the hook, and the humidity is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's very sweaty.
Yeah, he actually does not even have hair gel in. That's actually sweat that he keeps.
I just
sucking his hair
to the side. Yeah. And then secondly, when we went and got you downstairs in the lobby, we didn't actually tell you that our studio is actually here in Mark's room, which nobody can see behind the camera. But did you get weirded out when 2 dudes that you never met before?
It was just the male thongs on the bed that threw me off. Yeah.
Oh, dude, we weren't even going to talk about those, but those are
that's
Mark's.
off camera. That's off camera.
I figured,
yeah. Well, you got in the elevator and you're like, where are we going? We're like, to our room. And you're like, all right.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
That's good trust.
Yeah.
Hey, seriously though. So, a lot of people know about the Brianna Taylor incident that you were,
They think they know. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's why you're here, right? Like people think they know. And I'm going to be honest, like when that first incident whole kicked off, like you only know like what you hear from the media, really, right? Because the department doesn't put stuff out immediately. As more and more things have been coming out about the Brianna Taylor shooting, it's pretty enlightening about actually what occurred. And that's why you're here, because we want you to give your perspective of what happened. I mean, you were shot during the incident. You have firsthand account of what actually happened that day. So, let's get into that. You were working in narcotics task force at the time, right?
Yeah, well, we were just in narcotics. Okay. And this new unit is a brand new unit called Place-Based Investigation, which was out of Ohio originally. They copied it, and what it is they target one individual. Say Kyle is the shithead of the month, right? He's causing all kinds of problems in a neighborhood and getting complaints. They would be tasked with going after Kyle only. Put their blinders on, go get him. Don't do anything else until this dude is in jail. Okay. That way they're removing that problem. They can go on to the next one. So it's kind of like surgery, very precise going in. Great idea. One of the major mistakes our department made, like most departments make, is they took a bunch of guys who didn't have that kind of experience, stuck them in this unit and said, there you go. Here's your detective badge. Go get it. There was one guy that had done, several warrants, but he was more the stick and move kind of guy. Go do a couple trash pulls, send a CI in to buy some dope and get out. And then you go do your warrant on to the next case. This was a complete different element. So we didn't work with them. They were in our building. We had about 60 narcotics guys at the time. So they were just part of that unit. They did their own thing. We did our own thing. And so that's kind of how I got hooked up with them.
Okay.
How big's your department and how many officers are there?
Well, now we're down to about 1,000. It's supposed to be 1,300. And it's still that 1,300 is way under cities our size, like Nashville and Indianapolis. I think they got like 2,400. We're down to 1,000. So we're averaging about 175 homicides a year, 700-800 shootings.
Did you say 700-800 shootings?
700 to 800 shootings a year.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And then, the city itself, the inner city limits is about 700,000. With the metro area, it's about 1 million. So not a small city. It's got high crime, Democrat run, very progressive. But some great parts to it. It's a great city, just like every city's got its issues.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, the Brianna Taylor incident, that made national news right away. It totally affected your life.
Yeah.
Where you are today is not where you thought you were going to be probably a couple years ago.
Right.
And this occurred in 2020.
Yeah.
So, and after that incident, a lot of police departments really did change the way that they're executing even search warrants. I think narcotics teams started revamping the way that they're doing stuff right over one incident. So let's walk us through it. How did you guys even end up there? What was the initial plan? And let's just start from there.
Yeah. So in about 2 weeks prior to this, their sergeant over that unit sent out an email to all the narcotics saying, hey, got a manpower intensive deal coming up. Need as many as we can for overtime. Overtime, radar goes up. Okay, I'll look. So I looked at my schedule. I was working up until 10 that night. So I thought, and the roll call was at 10. I said, perfect. And I looked at the different addresses that he had given out, and I went, man, because I've been in the ghetto my entire career, just about, all the drugs and all the different stuff and trap houses. And two of these places they were hitting were trap houses. Then one was baby mama's house, one was mom's house, and then another girlfriend's house that was about 10 miles away from the inner city. And I looked at the map and I went, give me that one. This is overtime. It's supposed to be easy. I just want to get in. I don't want to get too dirty. I'm tired of digging through nasty stuff. I've done over 2,000 search warrants at this time. So I'm like, I just want easy overtime. Yeah. So I thought. Yeah, and 3.5 years later, we're still talking about that easy overtime. And it didn't pay off, trust me.
No.
Because I'll tell you what, the funny thing is, and because I'll forget later, the next day after I woke up after having surgery in the hospital, my lieutenant comes up and he goes, hey, just letting you know, we clocked you out when your surgery started at 2:30. And I'm like, what?
God.
I was like, wait a minute. I looked at him and went, you're still on the clock and you're here to see me. How am I not on the clock? So, but it's just the way it goes. And, so that night, that was March 12th. It was a Thursday night going into Friday the 13th. Okay. It was a full moon out. It was raining. We go to the office, do the brief, and I look on the board and it's like, no knock, knock and announce, when it came to ours. And the guy that was giving the brief said, hey, these are all signed as no knocks, but your all's is going to be a knock and announce because the no knock's based on the individual in this case. And we know where he's going to be. We've got a tracker on his car, ping on his phone, camera on the location. So based on the parameters, yours is no longer a no knock. Cool. Could care less. This is a heavy set black female inside, no dogs, no boyfriends, no weapons, which is some bad intel. And they said, give her extra time to come to the door. Because you know how warrants go. If it's not a no-knock, it's 5 to 10 seconds. Give them enough time to hear somebody yell something. If not, you go because you want that element of surprise. You want the psychological advantage. Yeah. And so we show up and go up and I knock on the door regular, just trying to get her to come out, keep the neighbors out of it. Because now at this point it's 12:40 in the morning. So now it's Friday the 13th, 12:40 in the morning. We're standing at this door knocking. And I give it a couple regular knocks, 2 different occasions. Nobody comes. So at this point, open hand knock, police search warrant, the loud yells over and over and over. Did this for about a minute, which standing at a door feels like an eternity.
That is a
long time.
Yeah.
And so, but the longer this went on, and I will say one of the mistakes I made in this is I went in here with my guard down a little bit, right? Because this is a female, easy. She's just holding the money and paperwork and stuff like that for these guys. No big deal. Done this plenty of times. So go up there and I'm kind of relaxed. And while I'm banging on the door, the longer I do it though, the more that little radar's going up in the back of your neck going, why is she not coming to the door? Her bedroom light was on, her car's here. Why is she not coming to the door? And so all this starts going through my mind. Yeah. And finally, after about a minute, I look back at my lieutenant and I'm like, how long are we going to play this game? And so he said, go ahead. And they breached the door. When it opened up, it went from right to left. I'm on the left-hand side of the door. So it goes right to left. I can see the living room, cut the pie until I can no longer see. There's a hallway and my door frame because I'm still on the outside of the door frame. And at this point, everybody's yelling police search warrant because it's just, once that door is breached, everybody wants people to know you're the police so you don't get shot. And so when I got there, I couldn't see any longer. So I stepped right into the door frame, never passed it. And as soon as I stepped and turned with my gun light, I could see two individuals down this hall and they were overlapping. It was weird because when you go in houses, usually somebody's given up, they're running, they're hiding, they're fighting, but two individuals just standing in wait 25, 30 feet down a dark hallway. I'm like, something's wrong. And these are all milliseconds going through your brain. Your brain's just working. Yeah. And as my gun got to him, he's on the right, she's on the left. And again, it's like two people or two heads, one body is what it looked like. But as my gun got to him, I saw the silver tip of his gun. And I thought, oh crap, but it was too late. Boom, he shot. I got off 4 rounds and then I guess training kicked in. I got behind the door frame, came back around where he had dove into a door, shot 2 into that frame. And then I sat down because my mind went, because I reached down originally and I felt, and the breachers tucked in the other side of the door now because shots are fired. And I looked at him and said, man, I've been hitting my artery, my femoral. And because as soon as I reached down and felt, my hand was just full of blood. You know, you've seen so many people shot on the streets that a normal leg wound, it'd bleed a little bit, but it's not a big deal. Very much. No, not much. And as soon as I put my hand down there, it was full. I knew it was the artery. Yeah. So my brain went, I can't be on my feet, which is dumb. I should have got out then, but my brain went, get off your feet. So I was out of the door frame, but kind of at the edge of it. So I sat down, I kind of squatted down. And by that time, the guy behind me in the stack had stepped kind of over me or on me and was putting bullets down range. And at that point, I really couldn't hear it. I knew he was shooting, but the audible started going in. Yeah. And I heard my shots. I counted them. I knew exactly how many I'd shot, all that. But once his started, I started doing this. And then I went, wait a minute, I got to get out of here. I'm going to get hit with crossfire. So I stood up and I went behind him, hobbled out. When I stepped off the curb between the 2 cars in the parking lot, I stepped with my left leg, which wasn't working. Yeah. So the knee buckled. I went down. I holstered my gun, started butt scooting back. My lieutenant grabs my vest, pulls me out. The entire time out, I'm yelling. I could see him at the end of the car. I'm going, I need a tourniquet. I need a tourniquet because just a bunch of weird stuff happened this night, right? So I'm going to my car after the brief. I've got the tools, the breaching equipment. I got 2 flat tires. Car behind me has 2 flat tires. It's raining, like I said. So I have to go back in, find a pull car, which is a pain in the butt find, get it out. During the pouring rain, I'm transferring all my gear, trying to hurry because I got to get to the second location for our second brief. And so when I finally get everything out, I forgot my tourniquet because I would always take it off my vest, throw it in my glove box in case I needed it while my vest was in my back seat or trunk, whatever. And totally forgot it. I'm like, of all things to forget this night, when you got shot. The one time I needed it, I didn't have it. So again, that goes to preparation too again. Yeah. I'm sure I could have went to the department and said, hey, can I have an extra $5 tournament? You know, they probably would have gave me one, but I wasn't thinking that way. Because again, 2,000 search warrants, you start getting a little complacent, very complacent. Because, you know, I've been shot at, I've almost been hit a few times, but not me, you know, it ain't gonna happen to me because it hadn't. And so when he gets me out there, you know, the lieutenant doesn't have a tourniquet either. He's lucky to have his gun because he was just pitching in to help. And so another guy comes around, he gets his out. And the funny thing is he took it and he tucked it under his, I can remember seeing this. He tucked it under his armpit and he reached in and started to get his gloves on. And I'm thinking, dude, I ain't got AIDS. Let's go here. You know, buddy. Time's clicking. I'm not a bad guy. And so my lieutenant says, F your gloves. And he grabbed the tourniquet and he threw it on. Thankfully, at least he paid attention in tourniquet class because he got that thing on. And the getting shot hurt, but man, that tourniquet, that is a mother. Yeah. It was on my leg for about 40 minutes and it hurt. That's the worst pain I've ever had in my life. Wow. But it saved my life. So
Did it hit the artery?
Yeah, hit the artery. So because my first thought was, okay, I got to get a tourniquet on to save my life. Then I got to get to the hospital to save my leg. Then later found out all that stuff we've learned in training of X amount of time is not true. Yeah, it's not true. So we get they get me in the hospital. I get there and there's this group. So University of Louisville Hospital is a training hospital, right? And room 9 is the critical incident when the alarm goes off, all the news go in there. All the newbies go in there because they want to see the trauma because it's the best in the state. If you get shot, if you get in a car wreck, that's where you want to be because you'll probably live if you get there. And I remember wheeling in and they're cutting my pants off and there's like 30 young females standing right at semicircle around my bed. And I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. That was worse than getting shot, man, getting exposed right there. But, so yeah, that kind of summed up the quick summary that night. I can tell you this, all the news stuff you see with Kenneth Walker online, the 911. Oh my gosh, I don't know who came in. Somebody came in, shot my girlfriend. It's all BS. That was 6 minutes after the entry that he called 911.
Really?
Yeah, 6 minutes. He called his mom first, talked to her for a couple minutes, called 911, then called Brianna's mom, talked to her, and came out almost 17 minutes later. He wouldn't come out. While she's laying there bleeding out, dying, he would not come out. When he comes out, he says she's the one that shot. So that just tells you the mindset of this dude.
He doesn't care.
Didn't care. Because 2 days later, he's trying to have phone sex on the jail call with another girl. 2 weeks after that, he's asking a Hooters girl to marry him. So
she was nothing.
No. She was just another, mark on his belt.
Yeah.
God, that's a wild story.
Yeah. So back to that. Okay. So when you guys, because I know so much happened in that little moment, that window, when he shot you, he retreated back into a bedroom.
Right.
Brianna then got shot in the hallway.
Yeah.
Okay.
So real quick, a few pointers for your listeners. The big thing that came out with Ben Crump, LeBron James, Kamala Harris, all these big stars came out saying they had the wrong address. They weren't even supposed to be at that address.
Yeah.
All bull. Our department had that from day one and refused to put it out. If we'd had body cams on, they would have released it immediately. But because we didn't have body cams, they were like, no, we can't put anything out. It'll hurt the investigation. I'm like, showing the proper address on a search warrant does nothing to hurt this investigation. Just get the truth out. And so they refused to do it for whatever reason. And so it wasn't the wrong address. She wasn't in bed. It wasn't a no-knock. The other guy that was part of this group was not already in custody. Everybody says, oh, he was in custody 10 hours prior. He was not. They got him at the same time this happened. The idiots keep calling it a arrest warrant for him. It wasn't. It was a search warrant for information. So all those lies just got compounded and compounded and compounded, and it led us to where we are today.
I mean, hearing this from you, I mean, this is clarifying a lot of stuff because to be honest, like Kyle said at the beginning, I only knew what you hear.
You only know a little bit about what you know.
Yeah.
So this was a multi-location search warrant. Was every location hit at the exact same time?
Yeah. Well, there's 3 of them hit at the same time, and then they were going to piggyback off that. SWAT was and go to the other 2. They obviously canceled the other 2 when this went down because they loaded up and came out to us.
How many people were on your team at your location?
7.
7 people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What was her? Do you know what her background was? Like, did you guys know that she was the female inside there listed at that address?
Yeah, they had her name. They had all of it.
So they had the information.
Yeah. And everybody asked, why were you at that apartment? It's very simple. Jamarcus Glover, who was the main target, had his bank account listed at her location. His phone was registered to her address. His when she bailed him out in January, 2 months prior, for dope and 7 guns, he had assault rifles, all that stuff. She bailed him out, put her address as his. See, bank account. Oh, his license had her address on it. His car was registered there. So that pointed everything back to her apartment because everybody's like, oh, why did y'all go there? Well, it's kind of part of an investigation. When it leads there, it just leads there. Yeah, nobody handpicked her and went, oh, let's just go mess with this girl.
Yeah.
And then with that information that you have, a judge signs that off.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
telling you to go there.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot of collaboration. It's just not like, oh, here's something. I hope this works.
Right.
Like, clearly they had that information.
Yeah.
So from the public standpoint, I mean, they don't know those things, right? Like the public doesn't know what a search warrant is, what an arrest warrant is, what is needed to get a search warrant. I mean, you have to have all of those things, the probable cause to even get a judge to sign a search warrant to invade your privacy into your house for the cops to go in. And so there's a lot that goes into it that the public just doesn't know. And obviously the department didn't come out and probably want to explain that. I mean, now I don't know if they knew that this was going to blow up to the extent that it did. I'm kind of curious. So when this did blow up, how long did it take for, it was right away, right?
No, there was a pause. So let me go back to Brianna real quick because I never try to bash her because I think to societal reasons, she was a victim. You know, she didn't have a father growing up. He's in prison. Mom didn't raise her. Grandma did. Grandma died a couple years prior to this or a year prior to this. I think her mom was trying to get back in her life. But these dope dealers prey on these type of girls.
Yeah, for sure.
That don't have fathers, that are looking for attention, looking for love. And she was just one of the victims in that area is what I'm talking about. Yeah. And so everybody, though, when you see her, you see the EMT uniform, right?
Yeah.
A decorated EMT, all eyes. She was an EMT for 5 months, never got out of training, was fired, not an award winner. I could tell you why she was fired, but it's not public knowledge, so I don't. Okay. But 2 and 2, you can kind of put it together what she was into now. In 2017, right before she was fired, she had rented a car. An acquaintance of hers and Jamarcus Glover was found with a bullet in the head in the trunk of this car. When the police went and asked her what happened, she was like, I don't know, car must have got stolen. So involved in all these different activities, which led to that fateful night. But then what'd you ask me?
Just after the incident.
How long did it take?
When did this start to really escalate and blow up? And I'm just curious, like what is going through your mind when all of this is now like coming out?
Well, when I woke up in the hospital, my wife came in and I said, was anybody else injured? Because I had no idea. Everything happened so quick. Mm-hmm. And she was like, yeah, a female got shot and died. And I was like, oh man, I could just feel everything went on me. Because what's our biggest fear? Shooting somebody that doesn't deserve it, right? I mean, it's huge. It's been a fear of mine my whole career. I don't mind killing the person that needs it, but I don't want to kill the person that doesn't. So tragic. And so I went, oh my goodness. Because ever since Michael Brown, what do we ask? Were they black or white? Yeah. We don't say, was it a good shoot? Yeah. We just say, were they black or white?
Yeah, what's their race?
Okay, good. They're white. And so I told my wife, this ain't going to go good. I'm a white cop, unarmed black female. We're screwed. The only thing we had going for us was COVID. On March 13th, that's when Trump shut everything down. And so he was on TV every day. Our governor was on TV, our mayor. So for about a month and a half, it was like under the radar. And I think that's what our leaders thought. Okay, there's this huge pandemic going on. We won't say anything. It'll go away, but it didn't. And once they chose their side, they stuck with it and they would not back off of it. So Ahmaud Arbery happened in April. We happened in March. Ahmaud Arbery happened in April. When that happened, Ben Crump got on that case. Remember the run for Ahmaud. And when he did that, one of the attorneys on the Brianna Taylor case had gone to law school and interned under him in Atlanta. So she reached out to him and said, hey, and she got on TV and said this. I'm not making there's video of this. She said, I got on there and said, hey, we got a black female who's not getting national attention, killed by the police. Can you help us? Well, dollar signs, ding, 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 dollar sign Ben. He's like, yeah, I'll do it. So then it was, if you run for Ahmaud, run for Bree. And so then things started picking up because it went from, 25, 50 protesters a day to all of a sudden a couple hundred, then 400, then 600, then 1,000. And this is before the George Floyd thing. So all of a sudden Louisville started heating up. And you could just feel the energy in the air changing. And so then May happened with George Floyd. But right before that, the thing that really stirred the pot was the information that came out that there was a lie on a search warrant. I don't know if you've heard this part. So during the course of their investigation, they're out there taking pictures. They got the poll cams, like I said. They've got video of Brianna jumping in the car or him jumping in her car and going down to the trap house with him. So she was an integral part of this. And one of the times, Jamarcus Glover shows up to her house that they've got photos of. They taking pictures of him getting out of the car empty-handed, goes in, a couple minutes later, comes out with a United States postal package, gets in the car, goes straight to the trap house. And at the time, I had moved over to parcel interdiction. And one of the things people do, drugs come to, that's the biggest courier in the United States. It's UPS, FedEx, and the postal. It's huge. And so they were like, hey, can you look this up for me, this address? I'm like, sure. Who is it? And they said, it's through postal. I have zero contacts through postal because them and LMPD had gotten into a big argument about 2 years before I took that job. They took their ball and went home, didn't play with us. So, but I knew who they did. It was a smaller city on the outskirts. So I called their sergeant and said, hey man, or I texted him and said, do you have anything on this? He said, we're doing a Glover. It might be the same one. I'll let you know. I gave the lead, Josh, his info and gave him his info and said, I'm out of it. I got too much stuff going on. About 2 weeks later, I'm out at UPS working, pulling packages. And I see one of the guys from that unit. And I said, hey, did you all get back with them? And he said, I talked to Kelly, who was the co-lead on this. And we figured out it's the wrong guy. We were comparing cars, different Glover, same last name, both starts with a J in the beginning, different Glover. I said, cool, not my problem, don't care. Didn't think anything of it. Forgot that address because this is 2 months after. By this time I'm doing parcel warrants also, about 40 a week. So you're talking hundreds by the time, we get there. And I'm not smart enough to remember an address. I sent in a text 2 months prior. So in I think it was in May, a news story came out saying, man, there was a lie in this warrant because the lead detective put in that warrant that the postal inspector verified packages going to that address in Jamarcus Glover's name. Well, he didn't. When they asked him, he said, no, there's nothing going in his name, which I'd already confronted Josh, the main guy, and said, hey, it's the wrong Glover. And his response to me was, yeah, I know. Now we've got to write all these warrants. I was hoping to just do a rip or a reversal, which means just grab the guy when he gets the package and because we know it's dirty and do it. I said, sorry, man. And if he had asked me, I would have explained to him, they don't have it sent in their name. I'm not having drugs sent to my name at my house or my girlfriend's house. No. It's John Doe to either a girl that I really don't care about or grandma's house or a vacant house where I go pick the package up because that happens all the time. And that way if police show up and they go, Mark, is this your package? Well, no, this is to Brian. Why are you asking me? I have no idea why this is here. You know, they have plausible deniability, which is smart on their part. And I would have told him that. So instead of saying, we saw him go in empty-handed, come out with the package, go straight to the trap house. This is indicative of drug trafficking because of XYZ. He took a shortcut and said, verified through the postal inspector that he was getting packages, which this case was tainted enough as it is with all the, either if you want to call them mistakes, bad luck, things that just look bad. And then when that came out, it was like, oh man, because then everybody associated us with investigating that and lying. Oh, you knew you served a dirty warrant. I'm like, hold on. We did none of the investigation. We were hired help. We were day labor. You know, we showed up, did a job, went home. That was supposed to be what happened. And we didn't read the warrant. It's not our responsibility to investigate your investigation. And so when that happened, things just went sideways quick. And then like 2 weeks later, George Floyd happened and things just exploded. Yeah. But prior to George Floyd happening, 3 days after, May 30th, 31st, Sunday night, we just moved into a new house. I'm in my garage cleaning up about 10:30 at night. I get a call from a joint terrorism task force guy in the FBI. Used to work for me. Now he's over there. And he said, man, what are you doing? So I'm cleaning my garage out. He said, you need to find somewhere to go. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, we've had 2 informants come in from separate, one with ATF and one with local. On separate occasions, the FBI has corroborated their stories and there's a hit taken out on you and the other guys. And they want to have it done by this coming Friday, June 5th, because that's Brianna's birthday and they're having a big balloon release and they want to have something to celebrate. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, man. It's like the movies, you know, all of a sudden. Shit, yeah. So now at 2 a.m, we're getting escorted out by a bunch of cops, taken to a safe location. And the FBI took this case, which at the time I thought, well, good. You know, the best law enforcement agency in America with the most resources, the best investigators, they got this case. Good. Let's do something about it. Well, about 6 days into it, this guy calls me back and says, man, something's up. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, well, the bigwigs keep coming down to our office and poking their nose in it. They never do this. I thought, well, it's a national case. I get it, you know, somewhat. He said, no, they're talking about the optics. They're saying the optics look bad going after a national victim's mother. And I'm like, screw optics, man. They're coming after cops. Yeah. These guys are supposed to be law enforcement. Why are they not protecting us? And he said, well, just sit tight, you know, because we had an agreement from the beginning since we're friends. I said, don't tell me anything about the case. I don't want the investigation. I want these people to go to prison. I don't want a defense attorney to come back later, pull phone records and go, oh, you were feeding him info on the case. Yeah. So he was good about it.
Smart move on your part.
Yeah. So he was good about it. And then 2 days later, he called and said, well, I've been kicked off the floor. They revoked his card, kicked him off that floor of the FBI building and said, you're not allowed here because the director or one of the directors came back down and was talking, saying we need to shut this case down. And he got into it with him because we're friends, obviously. And he didn't agree with him. So he kicked him out. 2 days later, the case is completely shut down. Now the agents were great. They were pissed off. Yeah. Right. But the command who had bigger job opportunities coming, he shut it down. And the only thing we can put together is our public safety director was a female named Amy Hess. She had just retired from the FBI in December of 2019 and come to work for the city of Louisville. She was the highest ranking female official in the FBI up to this point, appointed by James Comey in DC. And her best friend happened to be the SAC in Louisville over the FBI. And she worked for our progressive liberal mayor who doesn't like the police, who had already had Brianna's mom and attorneys on his platform saying we should go to prison during a news conference of all things. And you're like, wow, the governor did the same thing. And we're going, hold on, now there's not even, you can't talk about the investigation, but you can let her people get on stage calling me a white supremacist and dirty cop and murder and all this stuff. But I guess rules for thee and not for me. Yeah. And so when this happened, I think she reached out to him and said, hey, can you make this go away? Because after this case, guess where he got promoted to? Her old office in DC.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's kind of a scratch my back, I scratch yours. So not the smartest guy in the world, but I can put puzzle pieces together.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
dude, I mean, out of all of this, like, obviously it completely changed your life and your family's life. What are the, if you can go back and like some of the lessons learned in this whole thing, you guys weren't even a part of the investigation.
Right.
So you said that your team basically came in and it was just going to be like, hey, Mark is doing this big investigation so people can understand this. Obviously, if you're going to do a multi-location hit, you're going to need the bodies. So they're shoulder tapping you and your team to go hit a separate location that you guys thought was just going to be
easy,
a super easy, low key, which was a knock. It was a knock and notice warrant. And then all of this happened. So like, if you could go back and do something different, what would it be?
So originally when I was asked this question, I was on 2020 and Good Morning America with Strahan. He asked that and it was so fresh at the time. My response was, well, I would have just done the no knock. I would just gone or do what we normally do. Go hard, go strong. You got the advantage. You would never know me, which is still true. I think if we had done it that way, we'd have had the advantage because he had time to get up, put clothes on, get his gun from his thing, stay in the hall and wait, so, but then when I talked to John Becker from Aardvark, I went out there and talked to him for a while and he opened my eyes to a few things. And then my ego got out of the way and I started looking at things going, man, there are so many things that we could have done different or should have done different. One being the surrounding call out. Our SWAT team went to that in 2018, I believe it was. And I remember as a dope guy, they would come do some of our warrants. I'm back here going, you gotta be kidding me. 5 minutes at this door. How much dope just got flushed? Yeah. Now I'm like, screw the dope. Number one, we're not making that much of a difference. Number two, dope ain't worth somebody's life. No. And so we would have done a surrounding call out. That was huge, but we weren't trained on it. We didn't have one training on that. All the warrants we did 5 times as many as SWAT. We're hitting them 4 or 5 times a week hitting warrants. And so it seems like they would have had that. In the last probably 2 years of my career, I started getting that kind of I'm not invincible mindset. And so we did a ton of them where we would pull them off at gas stations, at restaurants, walk them back to their place, make them walk in first, debrief them first, go in and see what we get because it was just safer. But this one wasn't my call. So we did what we were asked. And, but another thing, somewhere along the line, we used to always, since we're in plain clothes and everybody goes, oh, they were in street clothes. Plain clothes is different. We still had vests on that said police, our badges, flashlight, we were identifiable. But we used to always have a marked car come out front. And as we're going up to hit the door, they'd hit their lights and sirens and sit there with their lights on to let the neighborhood know, if nothing else, what's going on. And I don't know if it was because of manpower shortages. We couldn't get bodies to come out. At some point, and I can't even tell you when, we quit doing it, which was a huge mistake. So, there's these little things that you look back on and go, man, if we just done this, if we just done that, not having body cams, which I was against. Now I'm like, I'm pro body cam all the way.
You are,
And I see the bigger need for it. I always understood it on the beat because not always, because when I was on the beat, they were starting to try to push them. I was like, I ain't wearing no camera. But I understood it more on the beat because of the complaints. You saw 95%, I think is what they say, of people that complain now. They look at the body camera and go, you don't have a complaint, go away. But on ours, we always had the excuse we didn't want to put informants at risk. Because if you go into a house and all of a sudden Kyle's going to work with me, but I got this camera perched up on me, he's going to look at that and go, no. Because defense attorneys are nasty, man. We know for a fact on cases, they pulled cameras, gone to their client, showed them the camera and said, that guy snitched on you. And so it's not good for them. It's not good for business, but in the grand scheme of things, it's pretty important. So those are a few of the things that I think I wish we'd done different.
Sounds like if you're an investigator and you start getting all these little red flags, those are things that you got to start really paying attention to and then maybe start questioning those things, right?
Right.
I mean, maybe it would have changed the outcome. Maybe it wouldn't have. And nothing is ever going to be perfect, especially in this job, especially doing that kind of work. Nothing is going to ever be perfect. Like shit is always going to go bad.
Right.
I guess that's why, contingencies are put in place and all these extra checks boxes have to be done before executing these warrants and doing this stuff. And then after that incident, I mean, I think departments now are really scaling back on, like I'd mentioned to you earlier, honestly, I don't know of too many agencies that are doing no-knock warrants anymore.
Which we didn't at the time. I mean, I think the year prior we did 2. The year prior to that was 1, maybe 4. The third
so
year
fading out, right?
Yeah.
But that was a big narrative, right? That cops are out there doing all these no-knock warrants in the middle of the night, right?
Yeah.
That was kind of the narrative around this whole thing, and that's obviously that wasn't the case. But I don't think that's also the case anywhere in the country. Not a lot of people are doing that. And today we're 2023. Most stuff is surrounding call-outs,
right?
And you're right. No dope is worth losing a life or getting shot. But I mean, I get it at the same time, like you guys, I've never been a narcotic guy. It's just nothing I ever did in my career, but I know the work that goes into it. And
so you want that trophy on the table at the end.
Yeah, man. And
that's your carrot at the end of the stick.
So I can totally see why the narc guys get so, pissed off when the SWAT guy is like, they come to the team and they go, hey, we want you to serve this warrant for us, and the SWAT team goes, okay, well, we're going to do a surround and call out. How many narc teams do you think bypass SWAT teams?
We
now?
did plenty.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
You know that it happens. So for instance, for everybody, let me paint a picture real quick. Before, as a team, if you're going to go execute a search warrant, right? A SWAT, for us at least, and I know most agencies probably do this, a SWAT matrix gets filled out, and okay, if it meets the SWAT matrix, you got to go consult the SWAT team. And if they want to take the warrant, they'll take it. If not, then they'll say, hey, we're not going to take it. Go ahead and do it. Well, I think teams are bypassing that. I think they're fudging some stuff on the SWAT matrix just to get around that, because they know that most SWAT teams nowadays are going to do surround and call outs.
Yeah. I mean, there's no thinking we did it.
Yeah.
I'm
no narc guy, and I know that shit's happening.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about search warrants, would you mind we know, but for everyone, can you just clarify the difference of a knock search warrant versus a no knock and why you would use a no knock? Just because everyone's like, oh, no knock. Like,
yeah, typically on no knock. So there were very many parameters. You had on that matrix, it had to meet the violence of the subject that you're going after, his criminal history. That was the main one. But then you had to look at security, whether there's cameras, dogs, whatever that would give them a notice that you're coming. Anything that would give them the advantage you tried to take away with the no knock. That's the whole point of it. So you have the advantage, because we don't want to play fair. We want to win every time. And so if you could take that away, it's what we did. And it was usually only in cases of higher, and I still think they're good for like kidnapping cases, stuff like that you've got to have quick service go in.
Yeah.
But on the rest of them, I think it could have been avoided, the no knock stuff. So basically it was on the individual on this case. It's not always that. It's fortified. It's whatever. If they're part of a major criminal organization or gang, that's one of the elements of it as well. The knock and announce, the Supreme Court says give them sufficient amount of time, which they've said is between 5 and 10 seconds. They prefer 10, where you're knocking, saying police before you hit the door. Again, this one was a minute, which when you're done so many the other way, and then you do this one this way, and it's your very last one, it's just different. Yeah. It's a total different feel that just kind of throws you off your game a little bit, honestly.
Well, I think that's what's important to point out in your case is that it was authored for a no knock, but things change and you evolve and you adapt to that.
You tried to do the right thing.
Yeah. And then you reevaluate it, and then you made the determination, this is not a no knock. We will knock and announce.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
So they did the right thing in that. I mean, it was appropriate.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately when the media read no knock, it was signed no knock for a judge. They took that narrative and without asking any questions, just said, "Oh, this was a no knock." Our senator did it. He passed a federal law calling it the Justice for Brianna Taylor Act. And I'm like, first of all, define justice to me, right? I agree. Tragic, horrible.
Yeah.
But what is justice to you? Hanging us up, in town square? What's justice? Because nobody could ever give me that answer when I ask them. And secondly, I didn't like the fact, and I like this senator. It's Rand Paul. So he says a lot of good things, but he's a libertarian, so he's not super pro-police. And I think he used this. He'd been wanting to push this for a while. And when he saw it as an opportunity to kind of step on our backs and get it passed.
The cop that was outside that's currently being indicted by the feds, who shot from the outside in. We don't have to say his name, but do you think that also kind of played a role in the narrative of what happened? Because now, then the narrative kind of became, well, all these cops just started shooting into this apartment. And I agree, like if I'm on the outside of an apartment, not best move to be able to do that.
Right. Well, I can give you the explanation I got from him directly, because I went to him and was like, what was this about? Yeah. Just because I know people are going to ask me. And he was coming up third in the stack. So as he's coming up, you know how it is. Once you start peeling in, right, left, whatever, he's coming up. The guy's right on my right shoulder. I'm there. As soon as I get shot, he is the third one in. So he's trying to already come up. He saw the flash. He heard me say I've been shot. He couldn't get in the door frame because the other guy had already stepped up. And so his immediate thought was, I'm going to button hook around to the front to see what I can do. And we're in this small little encapsulated area that's real echoey, concrete, metal, all this stuff. And the shots are so rapid, he thought there was automatic fire. And so as he's coming around the corner, he knew I'd been shot. And all this is in it's called 12 seconds in the dark, because everything happened from the first shot to the last, till it was totally quiet, was 12 seconds, about that. And so as he button hooked around, he's hearing this loud bop, 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 and he's thinking, they're getting executed at the doorway. I got to do something. So he said, I was trying to just put rounds in this house to get this guy to quit shooting. That's all I was trying to do. So I can respect that.
Yeah, which is it's a valid explanation.
Right. It's not the letter of the law, whether it's the spirit of the law, you can argue it, because everybody's like, well, were y'all ever trained to do that? When I do depositions and stuff. And I'm thinking, well, kind of we were.
Yeah, they talk about it.
They didn't sit here and go, okay, you can do suppressive fire. No, that's against policy. But what's the main thing they hammered in every academy's head across the country? Do whatever it takes to go home to your family at the end of the night. Yeah. Do whatever it takes to keep your partner alive. That's what he was doing. So, was it perfectly executed tactics? No. But
I think
go ahead.
What people and what I kind of pictured was that he's in the yard next door and just shooting. No concept that he was number 3 in the stack.
Yep.
And then he's actually, based on what he's experiencing, his tactical opinion was, I need to do this for this reason, versus being in a neighboring yard just blindly shooting in.
And he's the one looking at life in prison. He didn't hit anybody.
Gosh, damn. Yeah. Yeah, and that case isn't over yet. It's
it starts in October, I believe.
Yeah. And you still keep in contact with him?
Mm-hmm. I do.
I mean, the whole thing is just, I feel like from A to Z, like all these weird things that just happened, even leading up to this whole thing, just was set up for failure.
Yeah.
I mean, now obviously hindsight, you can go back and look and be like, fuck, this whole thing was just not good.
Yeah. You talk about
moon,
red
dude,
flags,
from Friday the 13th on a
flat tires. Yeah. It's just, everything was just going bad. And you can't just say, okay, because the op's moving. Yeah, you can't just go, wait a minute, I feel uncomfortable, I'm not doing this.
Guys,
you
got
can't
a flat
do that.
tire, I'm feeling a little odd. Let's sit this one out. No,
I forgot my tourniquet, guys. Can't do it.
So, but with that, I mean, like, there's people that listen to this show that do that type of job, right? They're doing warrants like this all the time. And so what piece of information would you give them to pay attention to? And if things aren't adding up, then somebody needs to speak up and say something. And at what point would you cancel or not?
Man, if we got there and it had been more dangerous, I'd have pulled back. But still in our mind, this is an easy one. Just because things are going bad doesn't mean that target's a hard target, right? Yeah. So that was kind of the saving grace, or the soft landing we thought, where, okay, shit's going bad, but we'll get through this. It's easy, because like you said, stuff goes bad on every op. No op is perfect. No. And so I don't know the point where you pull out, except for officer safety. That'd be the point where I pull out, but we didn't know. Yeah. We had some bad intel on this, because even up to a day or two before, they saw the guy that shot me going in and out of this apartment, and they never once told us about it. And again, that goes back to inexperienced detectives feeding everybody else.
It's a lack of communication.
Horrible communication. Yeah.
So I'm picking up on that. Like the communication piece for me is like, that's what's really standing out to me. And because if I'm running an investigation and I'm asking you to be a part of that investigation, I want you to know exactly.
It should be airtight too. We didn't have layouts of the apartment or the schematics of the apartment complex, because we didn't know this until fortunately I did a drive-by previously, like 10 minutes before we hit it, because I'd never seen this place and I wanted to get my eyes on it. There was an eye on the place that was part of their team. And so I called him and said, hey, I'm coming through. I got to see what door we're hitting, because I don't want to come up blind. And so we figured that out. But the entrance that Maps takes you led you down so these were apartments. These were 16 plexes. I think there was 4 of them. But the way that Maps takes you was blocked off. There was like a 10-foot fence there because it was a subdivision on the other side of it. And I guess they were tired of traffic going through. So you had to go down a different entrance. Well, nobody told us that. So there's so many things we just didn't, we were going in so blind, which isn't safe. But you talk about what would I suggest to people? Push that aside, get rid of that. It's all about training. We didn't do enough training. We just didn't. And while all of us were in narcotics, we only had one guy that was in my unit on that. Everybody else was it was a hodgepodge, stick together. Even though you have the same training, you don't train together. When you don't train together, things are just different.
Yep, for sure.
You know, I don't know your body reads. I don't know all that. So, but I mean, you trust the guys you're with, but when things go bad, you know, you had a couple address the issue and a couple, where'd they go? You know,
it's funny that you're saying that. We are here at TAC Ops and we taught a class yesterday morning, and literally everything that you're saying is what we discuss in our class, because, you know, we've both been involved in officer involved shootings, and what you just said is exactly what happens. You get some people that you're like, where did they go?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know, right? Because everyone's going to react differently when shots start getting fired. And then Mark talks about it as a team. Like if you're not cohesive as a team and shit happens, man, it's just not good.
Right.
Like you got to know your partners. You got to know, you know, how the next guy next to you moves and his body language. And it's just funny you say that, because like, that's just what we talked about yesterday.
Yeah. I think a lot of things have progressed since this incident, and it's changed law enforcement for sure. And there's a lot of good takeaways from it.
Oh yeah.
And I think one of the main ones that is happening and should happen even more is if detectives are out there and they're the ones responsible for search warrants, why would you not link up with your SWAT team and do a lot more entry trainings?
Yeah. I agree with that, but I mean, part of it is, and I don't want to offend you as a SWAT guy, but they've got a different attitude.
Yeah.
I'm better than you. Yeah, I'm better than you. You're just
For sure.
even though we made more entries.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, come on, dude, you know, and part of that problem though is it used to not be as bad, but now with how young departments are, you've got guys with 2 and 3 years on SWAT team and a bunch of them. And now they're all GI Joes or SEAL wannabes.
Yeah.
And I love the guys. I appreciate what they do. But when you're in your 20s and now you're, you know, the badass of the department, it's going to go here. It just is.
Yeah.
It's human nature.
That is always the confliction at every department is, and again, like we don't want to offend anybody here, but Mark, SWAT guy.
Wow.
It's always
Also, my best friends were SWAT. I love them, but
same with me. Right?
But and I would tell them that I'm like, dude, what is your guys' problems,
It's
man?
just an ego thing,
Assholes.
right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because I was in K9 for eight plus years, and we did way more entries and looking for bad guys than a SWAT team ever did.
All you had was a leash and a pistol.
Yeah, but it's like, but the SWAT team is always going to be the group of guys that are going to be leaned on to.
Oh yeah.
for
When
tactics.
things go bad, who you going to call? You're still going to call
I think
SWAT.
the kind of the difference too, though, is the SWAT team
trains
training, continuously.
Yes.
And you have a different responsibility. You're doing other investigations, surveillance in the office, writing stuff, doing research, and then you come together to serve that. And you probably have a lot more injuries than
But not the
not the cohesiveness
training.
and like the
100%.
flow. And
not
that's
the training, like you said.
That's the part that I think departments really should focus on is like, hey, we have a SWAT team. Okay, they're specialized in this, but we also have these guys, this team over here that does this stuff. They need to focus a lot on this.
Well, were they a full-time team? Okay, so they're a full-time team. And Mark, you also came from a full-time team, but realistically, most agencies don't have full-time SWAT
We did them for
teams.
years.
Yeah, so I mean, I totally get what you're saying, because you guys do train a lot more and cohesively as a team, but you're also on a full-time SWAT team where you did have the luxury of doing that every day.
Yeah.
Most SWAT teams are
Call-outs.
You're going out on call-outs, and then maybe once, twice a month they are training together. So I mean, as a small team, a narcotics team, a gang team, whatever, why can't you train like that? Why can't you be a cohesive
Well, we
team?
should. And you know, I talked to the SWAT commander we were friends. He left, retired in, I think, 21. New one took over, who was a little more arrogant. And he reached out to me afterwards and was like, you know, since we went to the surrounding call out, I've been reaching out to headquarters saying, we need to train these guys. We need to train these guys. We need to train these guys. Cause you got, you know, your division narcotics units, or they're called flex units. They do a lot of things. they're doing warrants. You got narcotics doing warrants. You got your homicide, or they mostly lean on them, but robbery unit doing warrants. And they're not being taught the same thing. Why are we not? We're the same agency. We should be on the same page on everything. And they weren't doing it. And he said, I would go and ask him. They say, no, we don't have the funds, or we don't want to spend the time doing that. And I'm thinking, man, it all goes back to leadership. Leadership just fails you to so many levels because of money or time. Staffing. Or it's ridiculous.
Well, and think of the stuff that you do as a narcotics team, a gang team, fugitive apprehension team. I mean, dude, you're out there, you're going after the bad people, right? Yeah. Especially a fugitive team. I mean, you're doing a lot of vehicle interdiction stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, your tactics really got to be on par, because the shit you're doing is way more risky. Yeah.
When I was in that violent crime unit, which we did a lot of the same stuff you're talking about, it was going after shooters, robbers, the worst of the worst. It was from get in the morning till late at night.
Yeah.
It's, you might do 5 different ops in one day. It's just grabbing this guy, pinning this guy in, hitting this house, and one might lead to the other, and kind of work off each other. And so in my mind, I say probably, it's true, I thought, I don't need to train as much because I'm training every day live. This is live action every day.
That's true.
It's kind of true, but it's not, because if your tactics are a little off, then you're training bad tactics every day.
And you're just getting lucky sometimes.
A lot. I look back at my career and go, why didn't I die there? Why didn't I die there? Why didn't I get shot there?
Shit, I think all of us probably can think back and think that.
Yeah.
Well, if anybody's taking anything away, obviously, I think this is coming back down to training.
100%.
Obviously, and you can say that to your blue in the face, but we know, and we say it all the time on this show, do not expect your department to provide you with that level of training. You have to seek that stuff out on your own. And if you have to drop $100 or $200 to go to a class because they wouldn't send you, then do it.
Or range time.
Yeah. You're only benefiting yourself, right? Like this conference alone, I guarantee you there's guys that footed the bill to come here on their own because they wanted the training.
Yeah.
And kudos for them.
100%.
Don't rely on your agency to give it to you.
Yeah.
So, but even going back and just thinking about this whole scenario with Brianna Taylor, like, honestly, man, like I can't even think of anything that would put a halt to this thing or go, oh, this isn't adding up. This is weird. We're going to pull. Like, it didn't seem like anything.
No,
really
there was nothing
wrong
to say pull the trigger.
Yeah. It's just,
it was
shit
just
happened.
Bad. Yeah.
Yeah. You're fucking playing with fire. And sometimes, in our job, like this is the casualty of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate. Completely altered your life.
Mm-hmm.
That was the last search warrant you ever executed.
Yeah.
That was probably your last day at work.
Yeah. Well, yes, almost. So when they finally released us after the AG's decision that he wasn't going to prosecute, I go in the office. First day I walk in, and my major calls me in his office, and he slides a piece of paper across the desk. I pick it up, and it's an involuntary transfer to the property room.
Oh, God.
I'm the HIDA coordinator for narcotics. We did search warrants. We were busy. We were a proactive group. And I look at him and I went, wait a minute. I said, I didn't violate policy. I didn't break law. I got shot for this department. I'm getting punished. Well, it's for the good of the department. They just don't want your face out there.
Yeah, it's optics.
And I'm like, okay. So I pushed it back and said, I'll let you know. I took some vacation time and pulled the trigger. I was like, number one, they wouldn't let me talk. So I had to get the word out, because even to this day, 3.5 years later, they've never once come out and said, no, they served a valid search warrant at that time. It was the right address. She wasn't in bed. All these things that are lies, they've never once addressed them. Not our department, not our city, any of them.
Do you feel like you have to do that on your own?
That's the only reason I'm doing this. Yeah. And it's not just for me. Okay. I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. I'm fine. Yeah. It's the guys coming after me. The calls I get constantly from guys who are getting prosecuted and persecuted by their departments for doing what they were trained to do, what they were asked to do. They did it. And then they come back and go, ooh, that went sideways. We're not sorry. Good luck. Good luck in prison.
But if it went well, they'd be like, hey, good job.
Oh yeah. It's in ComStat. It's on the, it's on the board. You're the man.
So you talk about getting your story out. You've been on a few podcasts. Thank you for coming to this one, but you've also written a book. Can you talk about the book?
Yeah. 12 Seconds in the Dark. It gets a little bit about my career, a couple little snapshot things that were kind of interesting. It talks about the case some, but the majority of it's the aftermath, what happened after, because that's where the hell took place. Getting shot was easy. That was easy. You recover, you do whatever to get back. Dealing with your life being turned upside down, not just you, All right, we're kind of callous to people threatening us and all that stuff. Your family's not. Your kids aren't. Your wife and your parents aren't. They all got doxxed. They all got attacked. They all got threatened. So that's a different ballgame because figuring that out is hard because I was in such protection mode as far as I've got to protect my family because they've, people going by their houses, people are taking pictures, doing all this stuff. And so I'm in such a code red for so long. And it was fine because I was protecting them physically that I wasn't looking at their mental, what they needed. Yeah. I wasn't taking into consideration that, man, this is tough on them. I got one daughter with kids. They all got careers. They've got, stuff going on. And now their life has been ripped out also. And so I didn't have time to feel sorry for myself at that point. I had to start, looking out for other people. And that's what this book's about, man. It's about the guys coming after me. And it's about the citizens because we keep going down this road where we're chasing off all the good cops. We're prosecuting the guys for taking the criminals off the street. You're going to have a bunch of guys go, screw this, man. I'm not doing it. And we're down across 25% across the board nationwide. That's a lot. Yeah. And it's going to take 15, 20 years to get back up to those staffing levels. Yeah. And because people are constantly retiring and they're going to be the ones that suffer. Us non-law enforcement will be the ones that suffer because we need good cops. And people are like, would you tell your kid not to do it? No, if that's what his calling is, because I think some guys do it as a job and it's not their calling. Yeah. And those guys suck. Yeah, we know them. They suck. Yeah. Or they're picked on and they want to be, they suck, man. You got to have the guy with the warrior mentality that's willing to go in and do whatever it takes. And so that's what this is about. Cause I don't want America to be like, New Orleans and Detroit of the 80s, all the dirty cops and, they're on people's payrolls and stuff. We don't need that. No. And I think in 2023, American policing is the most professional it's ever been. But it's the most criticized it's ever been at the same time. So it's a weird balance you got to take. And so we need those people that support us, support the good things we do. Mm-hmm. If lockdowns come back and cops start violating Constitution, I'm not supporting that. Yeah. That's just me. I know you aren't a political show, but that's just me. I want to support cops to do the right thing. Yeah. That's it.
Well, I think we're moving in the right direction in law enforcement. You made a good point. Of all these bad things that have been going on and all the critics and stuff, I mean, it has actually caused positive change in law enforcement. Right. We're probably more professional than we ever have been before. And there is a balance, but I appreciate all the negative that came from this. I do like that you are making a positive out of it. And I guess it's unfortunate that you're having to do that you have to do that on your own, right? Like you don't have the backing from your department. Right. There aren't politicians out there that are rooting for you.
No. There's not conservative media. There's nothing.
No. So you are having to fight for yourself.
I appreciate you guys.
Yeah. And being able to provide you a platform to share the truth of what actually happened that night, is a big deal because people need to know what happened. Yeah. I mean, going into this interview, I had my own misinformation, and so did you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We thank you for coming on and sharing that and really giving the truth of someone that was actually there, that experienced it and saw it firsthand.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, we just give a total unbiased opinion on the whole thing. And how can people get your book?
So Amazon's the easiest way and it's the cheapest because it's on sale right now for like $16 or something. Okay. So go to Amazon and get it. You can go to Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, or Walmart.com, Target.com, but I would do Amazon.
Okay. Yep. And then social media, I mean, how can
people find if you want to reach me, if you need to directly reach me, my email is john@sergeantmattingly.com. It's just SGT Mattingly. All social media is at Sergeant Mattingly, at SGT Mattingly. They can DM me or whatever. Okay. It's all open.
All right, cool. And then we'll put all of those links in the description so people can definitely find you and reach out to you. Man, John, thanks for sharing the story.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for coming here and coming up and hanging out with us in our room.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for that experience.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man.
Right,
I appreciate you, dude, and appreciate your time. All right, guys, that wraps it up. If you guys want to sign up for training classes, make sure you guys do head over to savagetraininggroup.com. Get signed up for a whole range of classes they offer nationwide. If you want to sign up for Mark's and I's class, the Patrol Survival Tactics, go to savagetraininggroup.com. You can host a class, get some free seats out of it. And thank you for tuning in.
All right, we'll see you on the next one.
Later.